And I remember during that week, I walked past a private room and there was an older woman there. She had like grey hair, she was like wrinkled, and she was like staring into space. And I went to one of the midwives or the nurses there and asked her, well, why is this lady here? You know, I thought it was a maternity wing. She says, oh, she just gave birth. The baby's in the nursery. And I'm like, wait, so old ladies can give birth?
Welcome
To another episode
of Driving to the Res
with your favorite hosts,
Larry and
Inelia.
wonderful June 2024. Actually, it's July now, but
It is July.
in June we had an interesting thing pop in.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about the wise woman and birthing mothers. You'll go, what? Anyways, during June 2024, our three female panelists, Dr. Kara, Ashley, and Iliana, took a trip to southern Washington to attend a workshop taught by a woman called Whapio. The workshop was partly about birthing. I think the great majority was about birthing, but we can see what the panelists say later about that. And we might call it midwifery or doula training. I might say might call it because there was much more to this training than knowing and supporting the process of giving birth. The workshop was open to women only.
Right. I kind of made a little joke about that because I wanted to go to.
You did. You really wanted to go, yes.
Yeah, but, I just couldn't do it.
No. That's true.
Anyway, I never had heard of the word doula before.
A doula is a non-medical professional who provides emotional and physical support to a mother before, during, and after the birth of her child. The word doula comes from the Greek word doule, meaning female helper or maid-servant. A doula's role is to advise, inform, and offer comfort to the mother, helping her feel safe and comfortable throughout the pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum period.
I see. Yeah, that was my first introduction to the word doula.
There are no recognized certifications for doulas, and in fact anyone can call themselves a doula without having any training or experience at all. This fact often gets in the way of the women who have spent years training themselves in multiple disciplines to be of help during pregnancy and birth.
It seems like a good thing to have. I remember when I was having, not me personally, but, I was involved in the process of having babies. We had 4. And that whole process was fraught with I wonders, right? Mm-hmm. And essentially something bordering on like a little bit of helplessness and uncertainty and unknowing and mystery. And I mean, they have Lamaze classes and whatever, birthing classes and things like that. But
they're very brutal.
They didn't have any of those classes on the fishing boat. Or on the internet lines that we had at the time.
Yeah,
it was more books thingies, and they were, all of the training that I got or learned about was pretty much about, like, you breathe or whatever, hold something about breathing.
Yeah.
I remember pretty much that was the extent of it. You just hold your breath or don't hold your breath, one of the two. And when we went in, it felt like we didn't know what was going to happen.
And by we, you mean you
my
and
wife
your
and
ex-wife?
I, ex-wife. We didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, we had an idea, of course.
The baby's going to come out. It's going to hurt a lot.
It's probably going to hurt a lot, and you need to breathe.
And you might
should
be
go to
giving
that class
an epidural.
that class they didn't go to. You should have went to.
Yes.
Right. Those kind of things. That was it. So
my experience was different. It might have been around the same time. I think mine actually was before that because I started a family when I was 18. And
yeah, you're just a few years earlier. We started 18 also.
Yeah. You were older than 18.
19, 20.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 20. A few years, probably 4 or 5 years.
So my experience was different because when I went to the hospital, they did tell me I had to take some classes. And then they showed me a video. And the video was all blood and poop coming out.
What?
And
I did not see that
guts. And I looked at it and I thought, I can't stand the sight of blood, so I'm not going to take any more classes. I don't do biological stuff.
You're not
right?
a big bio. Yeah.
So I told the person, I don't do biological stuff. And she said, well, lady, you better get ready because that's going to be very biological when you give birth. I said, yeah, I'm just going to close my eyes and it'll be fine.
Jeez.
So I didn't do any of the classes, but my mom said, did you go to any classes? And I said, no. Oh my God. And it was the day off, the first birth. She said, okay, I'm going to teach you the breathing. Like you said, puppy breathing.
Oh, is that what it is? Yeah, that's right.
It
wasn't hold your breath or don't hold your breath. It was some other kind of thing.
So
fast.
You can, deal with the pain a little bit better with that. I did read some books and I talked to my body. And when I did have to go to the prenatal classes and stuff. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey there on this article. But I remember most of it was how many drugs and what drugs do you want? And when are you able to have them? And when will you not be able to have any more? And all these type of things. And I'm like, tapped into my body. And my body told me, if you drug me, I won't know what to do. And I'm the only person who knows what to do in the room. So you better not drug me. And I thought, okay, what about an aspirin? Nope, nothing.
Gee,
I need all the information that I'm getting. I need everything to know what's going on.
that makes sense.
And I said, okay, at least we know that.
Some things you just don't want too much information about.
Yes.
But okay.
Anyways.
Wow. Anyways. Yeah, so doulas. Anyway,
Yes.
midwife.
A midwife is a woman who is certified by allopathic medical institution. And at most basic level is a nurse who has trained in the condition of pregnancy and birth and can assist a hospital or home birth under the supervision of a doctor.
So is pregnant is a condition?
Yes.
And is it contagious?
Yes.
Okay.
Highly contagious.
Highly contagious.
Yes.
If anybody
Especially
sees you pregnant, they're likely to get pregnant.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Either way, women who have spent a lifetime educating themselves, training and practicing the skill of birthing babies are still named after and classified as not quite qualified to be called an expert or a master of their field. They cannot legally be in charge of a pregnancy and birth, at least not in the United States.
Right, that's a bit of a strange thing. Somebody has to be in charge of it.
A doctor.
They have to be the boss of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I remember that was the one thing I depended on was what the doctor said. But in our births, literally there was like the doctor you might see once for like 2 minutes.
Yes.
It's like, when are you going to tell us what to do, doc?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm busy.
Yes, exactly.
Very strange.
Either way, women who have spent a lifetime educating... Oh, yeah, so... all right, how to find the correct training that contains the expertise and skills needed to ensure a safe and amazing experience for the birthing couples. And then how to practice those skills in a way that is considered legal in our power over others and profit-based medical paradigm. These are questions I have asked myself since the birth of our first baby, Daniela, nearly 4 decades ago.
That was an adventure. Your
Yes.
first birthing.
Yes, yeah, I know. At the tender age of 18, I entered the hospital expecting good things, only to be told that they were going to be doing a forced abortion due to my congenital heart condition.
Forced abortion, really?
Yes. I had no say in the matter in England. The doctors were required by law to save their patient, me, and to do that they had to get rid of the pregnancy.
That seems to be a common enough theme in the old shows, the telenovelas. They're having a baby and the baby's coming and then it's like not coming and then it's like, okay, you have to decide. You're saving the mother or the baby.
Yes.
So in England, they just made it a law. It's
they
like,
made it
you
a
don't
law
get
to
the
say,
choice.
yeah, because according to the English law at the time, a fetus was not a live person
Okay.
until it was born. And before that, it was just a fetus. It
was a condition.
It was a condition.
Okay.
So the patient was me. The only live person in the room was me, and I had to be saved. Long story short, from that moment, I went to war during my pregnancy and the birth of my first baby.
Needless to say, you didn't agree with their treatment.
No. During labor itself, the women in the room, the allopathic trained midwives, tried to force procedures I did not want. They tried so hard not listening to what I told them that I stood up as the baby was crowning and told them I was leaving. I was 19 at the time, right? I was pregnant when I was 18 and gave birth when I was 19.
Wow.
I literally, the baby crowning,
Got up.
I put my hand down there and I said, I'm leaving.
Leaving.
If you come, it was basically they were going to cut me up. And I said, I don't need to be cut up. My baby's coming out perfectly fine. He says, no, we have to do it. I said, no, you don't. It was that argument. And the woman was coming at me with the scissors and I pushed her away. I said, you stay away from me, right? You're not touching me. And she said, no, I have to do this. And the other midwife said, yeah, she has to do it. I said, no, she doesn't. And I don't not give you permission to come near me with scissors. He says, well, we're going to do it. And I said, no, you're not. So I stood up, right?
Jeez.
And I started getting off the bed thing. Yeah. And I said, okay, I'm leaving. And he said, no. Says, okay, so, but if we don't do it, you're going to tear really badly. And I said, well, there's a couple of things. I said, I'm not going to tear. And if I do tear, I prefer the natural tear to then a metal scissors down there. So just leave me alone. And she said, okay, let's make a deal.
Make a deal.
Let's make a deal. If we see you starting to tear, we'll jump in and cut. I says, okay. All right, get back on the bed.
Jesus.
It was really bad. It was war. It was war.
Yeah, I understand. Well,
yeah.
I don't know why. Why does it happen like that? I mean, it's the same when you go to the veterinarian nowadays.
It's all like co-creation and stuff. That wasn't my experience with my last baby. It was very different.
That's true. It hasn't been my last experience at the vets either.
Yeah. Realizing the conviction of my decision and that they could not legally stop me from leaving the hospital or bully me into shouting or medical authority, they negotiated. If this happens, then we can do this other thing. And I agreed, and the birth continued.
Stressful. I mean, that's already
not exactly
kind
the
of
best birthing experience.
Right.
I mean, they had come in continuously offering me an epidural, pain medication, and all sorts of other things, antibiotics, not even starting to put the things in, and I would say, what are you doing? Right? And then we're going to do XYZ, and I'll say, no, you're not. Right?
You must have really broken their world. It's like, this woman...
This kid, because not only was I 19 at the time, but I looked like I was 12. I was really skinny, small, and had a baby face, right? So they all thought, even after the baby was born, actually, they sent a social worker to my bed to make sure that everything was going. She was treating me really badly, actually. And I said, excuse me, madam, but I'm a married woman. And I'm 19 and I know what I'm doing, so go away. She said, we'll see about this. And she ran off, and then she came back saying, I'm terribly sorry. You look very young. I thought you were one of our teen mums and then you were placed here because there was no beds upstairs. Then I learned that all the other girls of my age were upstairs. I was with the married women, the old women.
Oh, no.
The ones in their 20s and 30s.
The old ones.
The old ones.
Jeez. Golly.
Anyways, not exactly the best birthing experience. I'd like to say that things improved by my next two pregnancies of giving birth, but no, they did not. It was a war each time with medical staff, including midwives, at me and me opposing ends of views, including a midwife entering the room and shouting at me for moaning too loudly as my baby was coming out. I had arrived half an hour earlier and they thought the baby wouldn't arrive for another day or so. She did come in crying later and apologizing for her behavior, but it was done. Right, I was middle of pushing my baby out, and she comes in and shouts in my face, "Stop crying and shouting! You've got hours to go yet," and leaves. You're disturbing the other mothers.
Golly,
I was like, "What the fuck?"
We didn't have any of that, but we didn't fight anything.
You said yes to everything.
Oh yeah, whatever you say, Doc. You should know.
My point, just being because the midwife is a woman doesn't mean she's a wise woman. Okay,
that's true.
With my fourth baby, now age 39, I was at 39 giving birth to my fourth baby, and having gone around the block a few times with 7 pregnancies and 3 live births behind me, I found a group of women in Sacramento who would support me in a home birth. At our first meeting, I saw that their hands were tied behind their back, and that although they could be the main caretakers for me and the baby, they had to sign off to a doctor, require tests and hospital visits. And if those requirements were not met by me, they would not be able to support me during pregnancy and birth because, if they did, they would lose their licenses. I had to comply or be left to my own devices. Luckily for me, all was well and they were able to take me on as their client. During the birth, there was a deadly complication that these women saved my life. And these women saved my life, right? I felt loved, cared for, safe, relaxed, and surrounded by my team. It was the only birthing experience I had where I was not at war. I will forever be grateful to these women. The father and my adult son, who lived with me at the time, were giving classes and educated on what to do during the birth if they were not able to arrive in time, if the midwives were not able to arrive in time. Plus what to do during the pregnancy itself to support the mom. When my firstborn, now an adult woman, herself started a family, these women took care of her and her 2 babies. I was present for both these births, and there was no war there, only love, light, and a level of wisdom rarely found in our society. They are indeed wise women. When our driving to the rest expert panelist Ashley shared that she wanted to become a doula or a midwife, this is what I envisioned for her. This is what, to me, is the energy needed by a couple during the birth and their baby. The energy of real wisdom, support, and happiness needed by mom during her pregnancy and birthing. After much searching, she found Whapio and her team of wise women. When reading about Whapio, it felt to me that she and her team embodied the energy I had experienced with my midwives in Sacramento. I wondered, though, why do the retreats happen in a barn and not in a palace?
Yeah, that was a funny part, right?
Yeah.
Because that was something they shared a little bit about. That in the past they used to have to train women in the barn because they weren't allowed to.
It was illegal.
It was illegal.
Yeah.
So they did all their trainings in barns.
Yes.
And this training happened to occur in a barn.
They haven't moved to the main house yet.
Made it to the main house.
Yeah.
Although it was a palace barn,
Yeah.
apparently.
The other thing that I brought attention to me was that her website, this lady's website, talks about being a matrona. Now, matrona is the Spanish word for midwife.
Oh.
And it's also an allopathic medicine term. I remember when I was little, there were matronas who were the community matronas or the tribes matronas. And they were the women who would help other women birthing because mostly hospitals were not available for a certain classification of people. And I also remember that having looked at the word matrona, it came from Latin, and it meant a married older woman with children herself. So a married woman with children herself was considered to be mature and wise of things that other people were not. And then she gained the title matrona. And it was that, from what I remember, that name was not given to women, even for birthing purposes, unless they were married with children themselves. And I emphasize the married part because, yeah, it came from the Latin and it was like, that's how it was carried through. And I've noticed that in America, a lot of people who are really trying and going hard at teaching old wisdoms will take on Spanish names for things, right? Like sanadora or sanador or brujo or matrona, like curandera, curandero. All these words are actually Spanish words. And they're not like any different to healer and midwife and all these things, right?
They sound pretty authentically,
But it's a way to break through that programming, I think, in this language. But if you said that in Spanish, it wouldn't
have the panache.
No, it wouldn't.
You have to use a different word.
Midwife. And
midwife.
Healer.
That would sound better.
Yes.
In Spain. That's hilarious. I remember they went through a few
research
trainers,
right? Yeah.
before I selected the one that they selected, and it wasn't it was a strange part, that picking, because Ashley would find one and then start researching it and then share with us, the rest of the panel, what about this one, what about this one, and then we would all look at it, and then for us, for sometimes it's like I look at it, we're like, oh geez, what about that, what about that, what about that? And I think when you become enamored with an idea, then you have less ability to see those.
You kind of ignore the red flags because you want something so bad and there's nothing else, right?
Or you think there's nothing else. It's
think
like, this is the one, the best one, the only one.
Right.
Yeah. But that's why I think it's important nowadays to have a team of high frequency individuals that you work with and you work with regularly.
Yeah.
Whose opinion you can listen to and hear, right?
Yeah, and you can look with, right?
Right? Because even if you have you could have a team of like low frequency helpers, right? Basically, it's like, is this the one we should go to? Well, is there a bar there?
Is there a bar there?
Does it have a casino? Well, then that's a good one.
Oh, gosh.
You got to be careful what you who you put into your team, right?
Yes.
Because even in a midwifery world, there are plenty who are completely indoctrinated with the old system. I mean, the old system has, despite its shortcomings, has produced a lot of babies, right? All of mine came that way. And I don't think that the babies that result, it's the experience that was orchestrated, like yours was a fight and a battle, right? You were in battle, and we were in, it was always some life-threatening something or other, right? In the way, it's like, we have to do a C-section or else it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
And then after a couple of those, my ex-wife said, no, I'm having this one regular. I want to at least have one baby the right way. And they were like, no, you can't. You've had to see, you can't do that. It's like, but I'm going to. And they said, okay, but if, just like you said, if something happens, we're gonna. It's like, no, you're not. I'm just going to do it. And that it went fine. Although for me, it was more stressful.
One of the things that I noticed about the report that the ladies gave about their retreat workshop was that they felt that it wasn't man-hating, man-bashing.
Right.
And it's like one might think that a lot of these women-only things start man-bashing, and it does happen a lot, actually. I've seen it. But they said it didn't. However, they did inject a little bit of information around that men are not actually necessary to make a baby, which I thought, is still there. That's unfortunate. However, they came back with the fact that men have to realize that when the woman is going into birth, they're the one in charge. They have to provide this safety, the support, and be the guardian. And the woman hasn't got to be the one who's defending herself and her baby. It has to be the man. It has to be in between, right?
Right.
You do what I say, right? You do what I say. And there's even legal words that the couple can learn. They're going to the hospital, because a lot of people do feel better going into hospitals to have their baby.
Right, and
they're going to the hospital and they say these words, legal words, and then the whole team and the entire thing changes because it tells them at a legal sense what they're expected to do. And even when I was a young woman, even as a little woman, a young kid, I did go into hospitals and I would kind of take over, It's like I would enter the room with the patient and I would examine everything and question everything and then talk to the family and say, do you want your whatever to have this and this and the other? And they said, well, the doctor said they needed it. And so I would say, so what does it do? Do you know what it does? No? Okay, find out. Find out what it does. And then they would find out what it does. And then they would start regulating their family members' medication with knowledge.
Yeah,
so
right.
It's like, and it's the same with birthing, I mean, what they're offering, and you have to understand that in a hospital, it's for, what's it called, that type of medicine? Trauma medicine, right? And birthing can be traumatic, I have to tell you. It's like freaking painful, and it can damage you. So sometimes the best place is the hospital for you. But when you go in, you have to understand that they're in a schedule, and they have to get you out of there at a certain time. And if you have so much money and no more, you're left on the side. Many hospitals will function that way, in the United States at least. And therefore, you need to be educated about what you want out of that hospital. What do you want out of it? Yeah. So on my third child in a hospital, I wanted a home birth in England, and they didn't have those. Right? They didn't have home births. And I was like, what? It's like 19, 20, 21. I was 21. Third child. And I wanted a home birth. And they said the best we can do is to send a midwife over when you think you're in labor. When you're about 4 centimeters dilated, we'll bring you into the hospital. We will do the birth in the hospital, wait a couple of hours to make sure that you're stabilized, and then send you home. That's the best we can do. And I said, I'll take it. And I was lucky because the midwives that on that time, they'd been taking care of me from the beginning, and they knew my personality and everything. So they placed, it was really funny, they placed a midwife who was really badass. You know, it's like she wasn't going to be bullied for anything in the world. Very wise, and they would put her with the difficult mothers, right?
Would that be you?
Yes. So when she arrived, we had a little chat, and we started giggling, and we were like the same, right?
That's nice.
And it was really nice because then she became my advocate, you know? Mm-hmm. But she was still in the old paradigm medicine type thing and everything. She said, don't worry. She said, I'll be here. And then when you're in hospital, I'll be the one, because normally the midwives that go into the homes are not the same ones that are in the hospital. She says, I'll make sure to drop everything and go into the hospital. You call me, right? And I'll be there. And she was. As soon as I called her, well, it was really funny. But anyways, we ended up in the hospital, and she was there waiting for me. So it was really different. And I believe that's the one where the other midwife came in and shouted at me. And then the baby came out a few minutes later. But she was really good, but it was like 2 of us against the system, right? And she said, okay, so we can't release you until the doctor signs off. I will sign you off. She said, you're great. You're doing great. Everything's fantastic. But I can't sign you off. We have to wait for the doctor. And says, where's the doctor? Oh, he's in with another mom and, you know, C-section or whatever. He's going to take a few hours. And it's like, oh my God. All right. So don't worry about it. I'll get you a cup of tea and some biscuits. And, you know.
You'll be fine.
But I could tell that she was at the door, you know. She was with other midwives around her and everybody. And you could tell that the other ones did not like her, right? Because she was telling them no, right? They would come in with scissors, go away, and she would do that type part. But I was watching everything, right? And it's like, or drugs, do not offer her epidurals. Like, we have to, it's part of the whatever. She has to be offered an epidural. Says, okay, I already asked her, and she's not going to have an epidural. But we have to hear it. And it's like, okay, Inelia, do you want an epidural? I said, no. Are you aware that after blah, 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 you can't have one? Yes, I'm aware. It's like, so there was still that
coercion
part, you know? But she was really cool. Very cool. And then she provided after care at home as well. So it was really nice. But that was highly unusual. And the other midwife said she's very special and that's not the norm. Right? But it was like a co-creation, you know? We co-create, we're not victims of anything. And if we go in with fear, we have open doors to that negativity coming in and the coercion and everything else. And I did behave from a fearful place in certain things with my children. And
right, you hadn't even made. I
didn't know.
You hadn't even invented the fear processing exercise yet.
No, I hadn't brought it in yet. So there was that, and other women, you know, were having a great time and very good experiences. From my time in hospital, with my first baby, I had to go in a week earlier because I used to be a ballerina, and with my first pregnancy, the muscles on my tummy didn't give, and my baby started getting distressed because she was squished in there and she had nowhere to go. So she started going up and crushing my lungs. Poor thing. Crushing my lungs and my chest and my heart. So we had to go into hospital for about a week before she was born. And I remember during that week, I walked past a private room and there was an older woman there. She had like grey hair. She was like wrinkled and she was like staring into space. And I went to one of the midwives or the nurses there and asked her, well, why is this lady here? You know, I thought it was a maternity wing. She says, oh, she just gave birth. The baby's in the nursery. And I'm like, wait, so old ladies can give birth? It's not common, she said, but yeah, she's 50s. I think she said like 59 or something. And she'd had her menopause like 20 years earlier or 10 years earlier.
And got pregnant? Yeah.
And she went into the hospital with cramps, like stomach cramps really badly. She thought she was dying from something she ate. And they found that she was giving birth, so they took her to the maternity wing. And she gave birth, and then she went into shock.
I bet.
And she was, well, that's why I looked at her, and she was staring into the distance, like into the void, you know. And she said, yeah, we can't really get her out of it. We tried everything, but she just... And then when we hand her the baby, she just looks at it. She stops looking at the wall and looks at the baby.
Oh, no.
And she's like, you can imagine, I mean, you know, she's lived her life. She's retired. She's got grandchildren. Her children are left. And she's got her own life now. And, you know, now she has a baby.
Start over. Should have just got a puppy, huh?
It's like an orchestration, you know? It's like everything is orchestrated. And it's like... And at one point, I saw her as I walked by. I was so fascinated by this lady. I would look staring, you know. It's like... I was like, what, 19 at the time. And she was on the bed and the baby was on her lap. And she had one arm around it. And again, it's like that void look. Looking at the baby in her lap, you know. And she wouldn't wink. she was just staring. I don't know whatever happened to that lady, right? After a week, they decided that my baby needed to be born. They're going to induce it, but I had a chat with my body and my baby and started a natural labor. So I don't know what happened after that with that lady, you know? I never asked. But yeah, all sorts of things, you know.
Yeah, but I think that the key here is be a bit wise. You don't have to go through torturous events, even if you can make it through them.
Yeah.
And have a baby at the end of a torturous or a drugged out or a whatever thing. There's other options, you know, to have this experience.
Yeah.
Options that are more high frequency, just say. Yeah. Right? Because it's true. Yeah, you can go to the hospital, you can go get the drugs, you can get the shots, you can feel nothing, you can get a knife, cut them out, it's the whole thing, and here's a baby, and you'll
be fine.
You'll make it.
Yeah.
But again, that's the birth process that generates the maximum income for the hospital and also produces mostly, you know, live babies and live mothers. So that's...
I don't know about the second part. Statistics can be moved around.
I didn't say.
Yeah, but I don't know. Oh, yeah, that most of the women who come out live with babies.
They come out fine and they have a baby and the baby gets shots and all the things, you know. What I'm saying is that that's the way that the medical system has designed to produce
the maximum amount
of profit for babies and mamas that comes in with all these baby visits ahead of time. They're like every 2 weeks or every month you go to the doctor and they check it and they go. Every one of those visits is more money all the way up until birth. And then in birth, these procedures generate the most income because the natural one is like, it's a
free.
hour,
it's
whatever,
free, right?
No surgery. There's no open up the bandages thing. There's no
Nothing.
antiseptic, so there's no clean the room when you're done in the operating. None of that stuff, right? So that's the most money.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, I mean, it isn't the most comfortable way for a woman either, because afterward, I remember after the C-sections, it was like way harder to recover. Your whole stomach is sliced, and it's like very, very, very uncomfortable. And the regular birth way was way better for a little bit tougher for the giving the birth part, but a lot better after. Right.
No, I mean, one of my one sister-in-law, from my brother's wife, she went in with the set mind that she was gonna have a C-section. She wanted the baby to be born on a certain date.
Yeah. So
the only way to make sure was to C-section, so she booked it and had a whole thing. And one of the things was also that she didn't want her vagina damaged, right, through a natural birth. So it's like, okay. It does get damaged. I have told you I had to have a reconstructive surgery after all those births myself, right? But there's that, it's like, I went to an allopathic doctor to get my reconstructive surgery done and healed a lot of the issues I was having. It was like, it's a pretty serious condition, actually, when you're ripped up to pieces after giving birth to a whole bunch of watermelons.
Jeez. Right. I guess what I was trying to say, though, was essentially that, whatever birth you pick, just be wise about it.
Yeah.
So that you kind of be bullied into things, but, you also don't eliminate
You're not a victim
possibilities,
here.
Right? It's like, do you want that? Well, I do want that, and here's why. Okay, that's your choice. You do it. Enjoy and have your experience, but don't go in there not knowing, because if you go in not knowing or not wise or not aware, then likely the birth that you're going to pick is the one they pick for you, which makes the most for the hospital, which is just the way the system's designed.
That's how it works, yeah.
But you have other rights and abilities and knowledges, so become and stay and get wise.
Yes.
And then do what you want.
Right.
Have the birth experience you want. And I think that's part of what our high-frequency babies are all about, is they want a less battle involved in this whole
they do.
birthing process.
Yeah,
they prefer to come into the world more gently with two wise mothers.
Yes.
Because wise mothers don't do things that, later cause damage to their babies.
That's true. Yeah.
Not consciously, at least. Right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
And as a man, what would you be advised for the...
No. You can educate yourself too. The wise women should have let the men come in here too. There was no reason not to, in my mind.
You really wanted to go to that class.
It's well, there were some things that it sounded like, oh, maybe that class I might not necessarily wanted to go to. But for men, it's a mystery. For women, apparently, by the way, the mystics, when they came back from this wise woman training, for them it was a mystery too.
Yeah,
imagine how mystery it is for a guy that doesn't even have the parts or the pieces.
A couple of them said, we knew nothing. This was life transforming in education.
Right.
And we felt it wasn't relevant because I'm not interested. And it's like, it was totally relevant, not just for birthing, but for life.
Yes.
Everything about life, everything about children and reproduction and living as a wise woman and being there for your community and how to deal with the community. And what sort of skills do you need to be able to support your community as a wise woman, right? And I'm very curious, Larry, are you going to find and look and train and or give a workshop for wise men and how wise men should look after their community? You can do it in the garage at the shaman shack and fix a car in the same time.
Yeah, we could do that, couldn't we?
Yeah. The women go in the barn and the men go in the garage.
Yeah, when I feel wise, I'll do that.
I think he is wise enough. I want to see your thumbs up if you think Larry's wise enough to give a wise man workshop at the shaman shack. Yay!
Yay!
All right, so in the second part, we're going to see...
we're going to have
the women who went, right? And also the men who have experienced what's happening afterwards, like Larry, right? And Fred. So yes, we will delve deeply into the retreat experience and what this has meant for Iliana, Ashley, and Dr. Kara.
Yeah, that's in the second hour. So
Second hour, so you get more details and what happened and what they have felt, and I think it's highly encouraging.
She wants to come in. People
because it's worth it. And one of the things, I mean, I was involved in women-only training some years back, and after a while I stopped because it felt to me that women and men training was essential, not just women training. Right. So that was my personal choice, right? But to see women going to a no women's retreat, right, and having these type of experiences, I think is very important. And that's why I think this is also needed for men to get together and have a men's only retreat where they can learn how to take care of their community and what does it even mean? What does that even mean? And as a man, how do you function, and what you can bring into, what values you can bring into your communities and your families and even your own personal life? I think that would be also really cool to see.
Yeah, I think that has a lot of value. You're right.
All right, we'll see you in the second hour.
Okay.
Love you, darling.
Love you.
And the only time at the end of the movie when they were able to win, when they won, and they were able to defeat all these demons and everything, was when the entire community of women in the village got together. Right? Even though some of them were, like a female competition and all those things were explored in that movie. But it wasn't until all the women got together and worked together as a team that they were able to persist and survive and win.